Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products and markets through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott, CEO and co-founder of Headset, and I am joined, as always, by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the High Rise.
Emily, I was just looking at our podcast feed, and turns out the last one we did was over 1 year ago.
Yeah, and it shows, buddy, because we're both wearing glasses now, and we may or may not be a little bit grayer, but here we are. We're back, baby, and it feels good. It's great to be
here. Yeah, for sure. I am grayer. Yeah, it's a little tough to look at the old footage and just see what the damage a year in cannabis can do to a person.
Some things have happened and also not happened since that time.
Right. What do we miss? Is safe banking through? Are we rescheduled?
Do we have access to the exchanges?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Oh. So we're back, baby. Here we are.
We're back. Yeah, everything's the same, but everything's different too.
Yes. Yeah. But we're still here.
We are still here. That's the same. That's the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to get back on the horse here and start recording these again. Yeah, so much to talk about, and it always is a great exercise. I don't know, just to kind of go through this and dig into the headlines, and always good to hang out with you. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, we've both been so busy, but here we are.
That's right. You know, we should get a poolside session. Actually, we should do one in Florida. Since I spent a bit of time there on that good old Project Sunburn. But, you know, I think that, we'll get these going again. I think we have some fun ideas for how to interact with the headset data, the Ask Headset. And I think this is going to be a fun relaunch. But today we have a fun and topical conversation.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk a lot about hemp, and speaking of Florida, I think there are two conferences this week at time of recording here. We're recording on Friday, February 27th, and I think there were two beverage conferences, Cannabis Beverage Summit, something like this, and then the Alternative Beverage Expo, which was not a cannabis focused one. I think it's, all alternative beverages, I'd imagine like
mushrooms and
probiotic soda, things like this that are so popular. But I'm sure hemp derived drinks would be a big topic there. So missed both of them, but it would have been nice to get out to Florida.
It would have been nice, and you're welcome to meet me there any old time that I'm running around the state. But I think that one thing that did happen on the High Rise, I actually went back to listen to it, is like a couple years ago, we started calling the shift in the alcohol sector pretty hard in terms of the consumer shifts that were happening around alcohol consumption, especially in the Gen Z that was coming up with their share of wallet. And I mean, here we are today, and cannabis beverages are all on shelves all across the United States, some in really regulated channels and some in not so regulated channels. But it's been pretty interesting to see that arc from when we started talking about that multiple years ago now on the High Rise. And we should pull that episode forward at some point when we were talking about Sam Adams and everything, just knowing that those categories were shifting. And that's a broad consumer shift that has occurred in our lifetime that we were sitting ringside for the data on. So here we are today talking about now a loophole that's been essentially closed, and there's activity around what that's going to look like on the go forward, and on the federal and also on the state to state level.
Yeah. Boy, we are way ahead of the curve as always. Yeah, I saw there was a headline this week I saw about Diageo and their sales kind of falling off a cliff. And I'm trying to look up what that was, but shares sank 15%. I think this was on Wednesday when they did their earnings. Shares are now down at Diageo. This is as of Wednesday, 60% from their all-time high in 2021. When I think we were in the midst of the pandemic still, and everyone was drinking quite a bit. But yeah, I think in
drinking, smoking, that was a good time for cannabis sales too, man.
That's true. It's
Netflix
true.
and chill, baby.
Hey, let's go back to the COVID. Come on, people. It's good for the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm not ruling out that as the consumer gets a little stretched, people don't stay home, cook more, watch movies at home, and maybe toke a little more.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, let's get into the news that we want to talk about today. So the big one, and we're going to run through this kind of news roundup, and then we'll dive into the hemp stuff a bit more. But the first one is around hemp. And a couple things. The headline this week was that a last-ditch effort to delay the ban from the closing of the loophole in the Farm Bill that's kind of built out this whole ecosystem. There's a last-ditch effort to delay the ban. It looks like that delay is not going to get voted on, which is not a great sign for the space. And I mean, we'll really dig into it quite a bit, but this is on the top of I think last week the FDA failed to meet a deadline set to publish a list of cannabinoids and defined container for THC serving sizes, which sounds pretty boring, but I guess it does kind of matter. Like, what is a container of or what is a container with respect to THC? Is it a single 12 ounce can, or are we talking like a 12 pack or a drum of extraction leftovers? And that really does matter to, like, all of a sudden, is everyone going to be sitting on a bunch of Schedule I product if it's in like a gallon jug, some extract that they haven't put into the drinks yet or something? Right. So yeah, some kind of disappointing news I think this week, and I wonder how this stuff went over for those that were at the beverage events with this news, especially on the delay in the vote happening, went down there.
Well, I mean, it is disappointing to those companies, but I think that, kind of one point of view I have on it is welcome to a regulated world where you have to manage within the whims of lawmakers, which we've been dealing with the entire time we've been in the space. So, I do think that alcohol, based on what we were just talking about, seeing their secular shifts around consumption of alcohol and consumer trend shifts around this, and where cannabis can fit into that as a beverage, I do think we could see some different heft around efforts to protect cannabis as a beverage in a different regulated channel. I mean, when alcohol prohibition ended, they had to create regulation around size, potency, and all those things. And then a lot of that was actually determined also at the state level and even further local levels. Like, for example, in Sonoma and Napa, they have different alcohol ACV. Was it ACV? No, that's please forgive
Contract.
Me today. Yeah. That's apple cider vinegar. I need some of that. My tummy hurts. But so, what is that? LAV?
ABV.
Thank you. The potency of wine. So like in Napa, you can have like 15% per bottle versus Sonoma, which is 14%. So like there's these little idiosyncrasies in the alcohol industry, which they are very comfortable. The operators in those huge companies and the smaller companies that become generally part of those bigger companies, they're all used to working in this fragmented infrastructure, which we are also familiar with. So I don't know, like this may be one aspect of it, but some of us feel that maybe alcohol is like, just clean it up, tighten it up, and then we can rethink about how to introduce this as an actual legal framework. And maybe it is just at the state level to start. So who knows? It's just interesting that, the one lawmaker said he did not feel that the delay of the regulation enforcement was germane to the discussion of the Farm Bill. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because I bet a lot of people feel like it is actually relevant.
Disagree.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think I'm very pro the beverage industry kind of participating in this way on beverage. And I am a fan of regulated products when it comes to these things for age and for testing reasons. So, I think maybe us taking a beat and getting it right is important.
Yeah. It's also a taste, I think, for the hemp industry of, we've been covering the regulated market forever and been participating in the regulated market forever of cannabis. And it's just every time, federal government's just like, it's so hard to get any movement on anything here, including a vote for a delay, right? It's crazy. It's like a little bit of a taste of the pain that we've all felt in this category. Like, all jokes aside, I mean, how many months do we talk about safe banking? It was like 6-7 times it came up. Yeah. Different
36 months.
Should just be a bingo card for the high rise. Did they mention safe banking this time? Like, take a shot. Anyways.
Is it me or is there like cognitive dissonance around vote for a delay? Like, we're always trying to pull things to happen in cannabis.
That's true.
Like, vote for a delay. I'm like, are we saying that right? But yes, we are.
I know. The other news story, and we'll come back on hemp here. The other news story is Illinois posts first ever annual cannabis sales decline. Welcome to the party, pal. That's all I got to say.
The salty high rise.
Yeah. We're back.
If you needed a shot in the arm, this is us.
Look, I mean, I just say that because look at California, look at Oregon, look at like mature markets for a long time. But here, Illinois for the first time down about 10% year over year decline. The Tribune's reporting 13% figure. I don't buy it. I think our headset numbers are better. I have a reason for this because back in November of 2025, the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation Illinois Department of Financial Professional Regulation, the IDFPR that, I'm sure we're all familiar with, totally admitted to mangling cannabis sales where they were including basically retail price. And as you know, Emily, especially working so much in Florida, so much of cannabis is discounted and they weren't counting the discounts in the total sales. So they were over counting what was sold. This happened last year. And they only found out as they rolled out the metric system and they kind of realized like, oops, we messed up. Wow. Yeah, I know, right? They should have been buying headset data this whole time. Because we were tracking much closer to the market because of our sample, right? And we could see what actually was happening. But anyways, I say that, because like, well, can you trust the numbers coming out of Illinois? You couldn't last year. But let's say 10% year over year decline, just in the market, not great. People are pointing fingers. Oh, it's hemp. Oh, it's, cheaper products or whatever. And generally it is like we see price compression from our perspective, looking from January 2024. So going pretty far back to January 2026, it goes from $41 to $34, the average unit price. So it's declining, right? And this is just something we've seen in a lot of other markets, but volume is holding, and we'll see what happens with the hemp industry there. I know, in places like the Chicago area, it's, there's a fair amount of it, which may or may not be impacting regulated sales.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting that 16% price compression, it took a minute and then it accelerated into that place. So it's kind of on trend for the industry, but I cannot believe they were counting the gross, not the net, and especially post discount. The thing that I think is interesting is like the discount rate, and then there's things we're seeing in markets where it's like everyday low price. So it's like the discount on a lower front line. So, and categorically, that might be different for different, for different products. So interesting to see Illinois landing there. It's, to your point, like, welcome to the party. Everywhere I go, at first it was interesting, like Massachusetts. I remember when operators were opening there and wholesale was $4,500 a pound. Okay. And people were underwriting projects to that. And we were very clear that we did not think that that would stay for any period of time. And you can see where a lot of businesses have had to close, and a lot of creditors underwrote to those numbers and have found themselves on the wrong side of that underwriting practice. But I think, the same thing can be said now for like now you have to look ahead on pricing and just kind of anticipate where things will go. And now we have all of this data of the states like Arizona, California, Oregon, Colorado, Michigan, to help us to see where pricing can land in a competitive market. And I think everyone should be prepared to see these things happen. I mean, get it while it's going hot at a higher price per unit, but think about that. I always am encouraged whenever I see these like headlines about the year over year decline in revenue. I always look to see what's going on, though, to your point with the units. So it is encouraging to see the demand and the velocity driven by the unit sales. And maybe we've just been in price discovery mode to see where the consumer will land on our categories.
So getting back in our car on our road trip across the U.S., let's make a little stop in Texas, where there is a Democratic primary happening March 3rd. March 3rd. Yeah, you're probably seeing all the headlines, the Tallarico stuff. I don't know if you caught the Colbert interview. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But I'm not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about cannabis, and they're going to have a ballot question on whether or not the state should legalize cannabis for all adults and expunge criminal records. Non-binding, so take it for what it is. But I don't know. It seems like, given the adoption of hemp in Texas, people want legal cannabis. So we will see after the Democratic primary, which I think is, it seems like a lot of eyes are on the primary out there right now. So it should be interesting to see where cannabis lands on that.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, isn't that something? That's what they say down there. But legalize cannabis. So it's the question whether the state should legalize cannabis for adults and automatically expunge criminal records for the past low-level cannabis offenses. So usually that means unarmed cannabis offenses, which is what we used to, when I was on the board of Marijuana Policy Project, that was a lot of what we would advocate for in terms of reform. So that it's a nonviolent offense, essentially. I think this is, like you said, I think it's an interesting pulse check. I mean, Texas is kind of I feel like there's some states right now that are kind of holding the zeitgeist of the country. I think Florida and Texas are two of them. And I'm curious to see how this goes. They've had a challenging run with the medical program, and they did just ban, speaking of the hemp tie-through, smokable hemp in Texas. And from what I hear it in Florida, I hear it from the federal level. It does sound like there are some, the DEA and other groups are cracking down on some of these shops that have kind of these unregulated products, or what they're now referring to. Again, they're bringing back an old term of hot hemp, which is not hot honey, which I actually really love.
Where is that the industry term, or you're just hearing that?
I'm hearing that more from the regulator side. They used to call any hemp that tested above the 0.3% was hot hemp. So you could smoke your jeans and get high, but yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see where Texas lands on this. They did just have their medical licenses granted by the state, and I think there's some lawsuits around that already. So anyway, curious and excited to see it. But I know the hemp market there is massive and pretty sophisticated. Like, there's a lot of shops throughout the state, in addition to the beverages being sold in specific beverage retailers.
Right. Moving on to Virginia. Virginia House passes retail marijuana sales bill. This is in the Cardinal News. We'll link all these articles here. But Virginia House of Delegates passed a bill in a 65-32 vote that would allow licensed cannabis retail stores to begin selling recreational marijuana in November of 2026. They legalized possession in 21, but never had legal retail sales. So that's progress for a state in the South.
Woof. Yeah, and there have been several transactions around it because a few groups were there early and allocated capital, CapEx, and had to wait this whole time for this to come to fruition. So that's been a painful one, but I do think it's interesting because it's like one of the, first colonies of the United States. It was known for tobacco and its crops and I believe cannabis actually for hemp for industrial
Really?
purposes. Yes.
Mm.
But here we are finally. It's kind of like one of the stragglers coming in over the finish line.
Yeah, right.
You know?
There's not that many left, but
No.
I think they'll beat Pennsylvania. That'll be the race here to see.
Yeah. It is fun to do this because it does remind you, like sometimes you're just like, oh man, I'm just out here, kicking rocks, nothing's happening. And then you see these things happening around the market. You're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of progress in the time we've been here.
Yeah. Another story, New Jersey spot index, cannabis benchmarks. I know they publish some index on wholesale pricing. I'm not sure where the data is coming from, but they talked about in New Jersey fell 8% this week, the wholesale price. At Headset, we're not seeing that in the retail data. It could be a kind of a lagging indicator, right? Or the retailers are continuing to sell at the set price. They're just paying less for wholesale. Retail sales are down when we look this month versus last month, over the last 30 days to the 30 days prior, down about 6%, but retail prices have been stable. Average unit price about $39. So I don't know if there's a story here yet, but just something to kind of see or to kind of watch and see. I don't know what could be driving this. Do you have any insight into New Jersey or why this would happen?
Yeah, there was a lag in cultivation and product companies coming online in that market relative to the time of the market being open. And I think they're finally getting open and it's
getting competitive.
Yeah, it's getting competitive. But, it is interesting. I was looking at New Jersey data with Colin the other day. We were talking about if chocolate gets a lift around Valentine's Day and so I was, I was talking to my new best friend at Ask Headset, who you guys probably see me talking to the robot all day over there, just querying it all day long. It's so fun. It's like my new little data friend. It is the best. It's like gives me little notes back. I love it. It's a big company. Anyway, but Colin and I were kind of like thinking about this and, one of the things I did note in New Jersey is the explosion of brands over the last year. I mean, countless new entrants, which is awesome for the consumer because for a while it was pretty limited in terms of the brands in the state, but now it's like so many. And so now the consumer, like this is the free market. So we'll see what the consumer dictates that they really like as the must-have brands that like we know about in other markets in California and like my good old Cannabiotics, they got to have that flower on the shelves. So it's cool. But yeah, I mean, wholesale, it gets competitive real fast. It's a really tough aspect of the vertical to be in if you don't have the retailer component to it. And it does get aggressive when these things turn on. So it's something to be mindful of for sure.
Yeah, New Jersey has seemed to be very stable for a long time. So yeah, I think to your point, we may be seeing that change a little bit. I was just out there for the Ignited event. We're their data partner. And I spoke on New Jersey. Actually, we have that on the website. You can go look at the data I brought. And yeah, it's like everything, the devil's in the details. When you start to drill into the stores, like there's a significant amount of stores that are not growing very much or contracting quite significantly. And there are some outliers that are doing really well too. So all this is in our report. So worth taking a look.
I mean, that's the thing in cannabis is like once you get to a critical mass of retail, then it comes down to good old fashioned retail site selection, location, parking, traffic counts, the socioeconomic and characteristics of the surrounding audience, like if you have a stadium nearby. But like, when that market opened, that was another gangbuster. Like I remember that one Curaleaf location, was it down in like Neptune or something? They were doing like they were on a run rate, I think, of like $75 million a year. Like these things were beast mode. That was like our store. I remember the Ascend store in Southern Illinois. It was like 54 million first year. It's crazy. These stores. I mean, talk about product market fit from go. But
right,
but then more stores open around you, and people find new pathways and new products that they like, and you have to innovate and compete, and you have to have a good site selection for your location.
Competition, what a pain.
That makes us better.
Makes us better. It's true.
Competition is better for the consumer, because then we
way
all have
better.
to work harder for them, right?
Yep. Moving on to Missouri. Missouri, great market for regulated cannabis, and now a really bad market for hemp. They passed a bill, the Missouri House, to ban all intoxicating hemp products, seltzers, gummies, edibles, beginning November of 2026, aligning state law with the federal hemp recriminalization. It said even if Congress reverses course, the bill would only permit hemp products in licensed dispensaries. So this is what it looks like in markets like California, markets like Washington State. Frankly, I mean, a lot of regulated markets, if there's like cannabis or hemp drinks, they're supposed to be sold through the regulated channel. There are some exceptions for sure. Places like Illinois, right? But yeah, this is kind of what we see. I'm up in Seattle, and I can't get any of this stuff at any stores. Can't go to Total Wine like you could if you were in Texas.
Right.
So yeah, it's they're just kind of, I guess, closing that a bit of a loophole there for that state.
Right. I mean, that state in Ohio, it seems like the operators have done a better job than in other markets of co-opetition, where they work together and they kind of take the, tobacco has been incredibly effective at this. They like fight like cats and dogs, but when it comes to getting aligned on lawmaker issues, they work incredibly well together. And alcohol too, by the way. So I think that for some reason in Missouri, those operators got together and have they've worked well together while competing. And the same thing sounds like it's starting to happen in Ohio, where they were like, wait, we have a common competitor that is regulated quite differently, i.e. not at all. And we have to understand how to navigate this as an industry, as a kind of an outlier challenge to our business. And so I think they got together and worked hard on that, but that's where it stands. But it's Missouri has been an interesting market, and they had created nice protections around their businesses for a long time.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, moving to New York. So in New York, there's new bills that have been filed in the New York legislature that would allow liquor and wine stores to obtain permits to sell low-dose cannabis-infused beverages. The bills would require separate storage, tracking, and enforcement coordination, revenue sharing from municipalities, and support for social equity applicants. So, Missouri banning them outright, and then New York trying to carve out some room in, the liquor and wine store channel. Again, well, kind of more of an exception, I feel like, when you have a regulated cannabis market, to have a low-dose cannabis-infused beverage market in the stores. I just don't know of that many. Illinois comes to mind. What other? California, you certainly can't. Washington, you can't go buy a drink in a store. So, anyways, it's new bills have been filed. We'll see if it happens. Obviously, and then all the hemp stuff we talked about at the top of the show. Who knows if this turns into anything? But just a different tack.
It is a different tack. I like it. I'm for it.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm always like, I'm trying to think about reasonable approach to lawmaking.
Hmm.
That's a silly idea, but I think it's a good way to approach it, and it answers to the demand for that kind of product, which is harder for our industry to do. We've talked about that on the podcast in the past, and it's just kind of like, this is going to exist, so let's regulate it and put it through a channel that knows how to regulate beverage, which is wine and spirits.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
beer. But I was also wondering that, you know, New York State is going through that weird thing where didn't they like rezone the distance from things for
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've heard that's been a real challenge for the regulated market, but I need to follow up on it. I've kind of, ever since the Bills lost, I haven't really wanted to think about my home state too much. Too much heartbreak.
Speaking
Yeah.
of New York, did you see the headline today? John Kagia is now the
Yes.
executive director. Yeah,
That's
crazy.
cool.
It's very cool. He's a great guy. For those that
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to meet him, gosh, I wish him the best. It's got to be.
Bless
I mean,
your
he's
heart.
been it. He's been in it for the long haul. You know, I think
Yes.
he was there early. He's been through the ups and downs. And downs of that market, you know, as it's getting going.
Yes.
So I'm sure he's got a thick skin at this point. But yeah, I met John. He was working at New Frontier. I think we were, it's 10 years ago. It was a long time ago. So it's great to see him there, and hopefully he can have some success in New York.
That was
yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I felt like it was like one of those things where you like, if you like read your college updates about your class or like something, and I was like, oh, John,
he made it.
Yeah, he made it. And like, bless on that mission.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
right.
like, it was cool to see that, and he is a really great human and a very smart guy. So I'm excited. It's exciting for them that they got him. So
it is.
All around to win. Yeah.
And while we're on the subject of New York, so the mayor out there, Mayor Mamdani, who's quite famous on the national stage, I feel like, has budget projections that cannabis tax revenue reaching $43 million by 2030. Current year collections at 24 million. So that would be, I think, a 33% year-over-year growth to get there, which is a good growth rate for any industry. If you could get 35% growth every year, compounded here. They've got 211 licensed shops, double from a year ago. As we know, and longtime listeners of the High Rise knows, New York has been slow going, but it seems to be accelerating, I think, the last year. And now with John at the helm, hopefully some stability will come. But yeah, revenue growth, I don't know. I think it's ambitious to say that it's going to see that kind of growth continually. I think New York has got, how these numbers sometimes, I think it can at least double from where it's at, I think. Based on like population size and the revenue run rate. And I'd have to pull the numbers again. But I feel like there's a plenty of headroom, just kind of what we see in other markets and where things kind of begin to stabilize. But yeah, 33% growth year over year going forward. I mean, like we're talking about, Illinois is contracting, they're not as new as New York, but this is one high rise from now when my hair is completely gray. Maybe that'd be next year at this rate. We'll be like, look at New York, it's contracting, that'll be the headline, right? So can they get there to 2030 and have that kind of growth? We shall see.
We shall. That's an aggressive projection.
Yeah. I think, it's tracking now, but yeah, it's hard to know.
But we know these things are not,
they don't last forever.
Yeah, right. They have a different arc of speed. Yes.
Let's see. Boy, lots to talk about. And this is not like a year's worth of news. This is just literally like the last 2 weeks worth. And it's not even all comprehensive by any measure. It's just a big world out there. Yeah, like you were saying earlier, when you're just kicking rocks and you see headlines like this.
Sitting around kicking rocks over here.
Yeah. So, disappointing news. DOJ urging the Supreme Court to uphold the federal law banning cannabis users from owning guns. We know the gun thing in America, and, cannabis, it's like a wedge for sure, if they can keep it in there, which is disappointing. So, irony here, right? Trump pushing rescheduling, but his own DOJ says rescheduling doesn't matter. Users can't still own guns. I don't know how does that work with other Schedule III substances?
I mean,
not relevant?
I don't think so. And
I don't think so, yeah.
I saw the Reefer Madness quote in there that it makes people uniquely dangerous. And I was like, you clearly have never tried cannabis, sir. It makes everyone a lot chiller,
Yeah.
I always joked that I went to like that women's summit many, many years ago. And sometimes gals can get a little spicy with each other, especially if they've been drinking. But there was nobody drinking and everyone was consuming cannabis. And it was like the nicest I've ever seen women be to each other.
Uniquely nice, not uniquely dangerous, huh?
Yes, exactly. No Chardonnay, like cat scratching or like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think that it's just a misguided perspective. So I
really do. That is an amazing quote. We'll put this in the show notes, but it's the Solicitor General argued that, quote, makes people uniquely dangerous. Like in what way? Uniquely dangerous. It's not more dangerous, just uniquely dangerous, right?
We get really freaky. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That guy's, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's just misguided, and
maybe we can get him on the show and ask. That'd be amazing.
It would be amazing. We'd be like, please help us with that phrasing.
Yeah, give us some examples of what uniquely dangerous looks like creatively dangerous. They're dangerous in new ways that no one's ever thought about.
Sometimes I feel like I'm creatively dangerous just by my own like peril, but like that's purely self-inflicted one.
Yeah.
But that to me, when I hear uniquely dangerous, I'm like, someone could describe my like clumsiness and general like ability to get the belt loop of my pants hooked on a doorknob. Like that is like,
and that's more like dangerous to your own well-being, right? Yes. Maybe that's what this Solicitor General is worried about. Hey, these guys are dangerous to themselves. Whatever. It's annoying. We'll see. But it's just like, what is what, right? When you have, it's Trump's own DOJ, but they're pushing this line, always keeping us guessing.
Always.
Next, and I swear we're almost done with the news. Hawaii approves limited marijuana legalization. Hawaii senators approved SB 3275, a bill to legalize low dose, low potency cannabis, max 5 milligram THC per serving. Yeah. What's the opposite of Maui? Wowie. It's like Maui.
It's Maui. Okay.
Okay. The bill does not provide for commercial cultivation or retail sales. So is this going to be like DC? Do you remember DC? Yeah. No legal market. And it's just like everyone has it. You're getting it from people. People can't sell it, but they can gift it because they have it. And they're, you buy a hat from them and they give you some weed because, it's cool that you bought a hat. Is that the story? Is that what it's going to look like? Are they just rubber stamping a gray market?
Feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's great for a consumer, not great for like an industry.
No.
And mixed, I don't know for non-consumers what it means, if they're going to get, it didn't go great for DC with that whole setup.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, in general, legalization without a framework doesn't work that well. I mean, even New York, right? Like they decrimmed it and you could consume it everywhere, but there was nowhere to buy it legally. Because remember, it took so long to get the very first store opened. And so then it created a lot of space for not
stores that weren't
legal.
licensed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's your tax revenue that's not coming to the state. There's your
Hmm.
non-tested product. There's your non-age verified product. So whatever. Like I'm all for access, but I want it
Sure.
to be safe
Yeah.
access, and I'm all for decrimming it because I don't think anybody should be criminalized for nonviolent cannabis possession. But
Right.
like anyway, but okay, fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have fun out there. I'm a
Have
5
fun out there.
milligram max girl, so I'd be
Totally.
okay. I'd be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool to see progress. Yeah. Something. So, last but not least, 4 states advance medical marijuana in hospitals. I saw this one when it hit the other day. Colorado, Hawaii, Virginia, and Washington State are all advancing quote unquote Ryan's Law bills to allow medical marijuana access in healthcare facilities, named after a California patient. Um, yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, Hawaii making the list. Maybe it'll only be 5 milligrams for the patients, but um, pretty progressive states. I mean, Colorado and Washington, Virginia is interesting to see on here. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that one, but yeah, Colorado, Hawaii, Virginia, Washington State doing this, which is good. You know, medical. It's a funny thing, right? And so we're so disconnected from medical in many ways. Sometimes when you think about it, and then you think about hospitals, you know, like people use it for medical purposes, but in hospitals, it's not allowed. So good to see some progress there.
I am very in favor of this. This is to me like it's actually a very big step because I feel like it makes people think potentially differently about it. And, I mean, so many things happen when you're in a hospital. And like, even just the fact that some people start their pathway to addiction with painkillers in a hospital post-op. So having the alternative, like I know I've had family members who've chosen to go the route of cannabis instead of the painkillers because they didn't want to even deal with the side effects of the painkillers because the stomach stuff, the mood stuff. And so, but it would have been nice if they could have had that right there in the hospital. So pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have for the news. Only 40 minutes worth of news headlines, but lots happening out there. So I thought before we go, we could just talk a little bit more about the hemp ban. This is going to be the big story this year. I have some data at Headset. We started measuring some hemp beverage sales at large retail groups that you're probably familiar with in markets like Texas and Florida, Illinois, Minnesota, groups that have a nationwide footprint. So I can share some of that. But I think the big story here is that time is not on the hemp industry's side. From what I understand, it's a plant, and they need to plant the seeds here, and I think it takes 100 to 150 days. But I think things start in like February, March. February is probably pretty cold in the ground, but I think soon here they're going to start planting. And the concern is there going to be a market on the other side, right? So it's a pretty significant investment if you're a farmer to go and to invest in these crops. It takes time to grow here. And if you get out on the other side and you have no market because it is going to get shut down and you're sitting on all sorts of product that you can't move, it's almost like it's dead before November because of that, right? And people are trying to move the stuff they do have because they don't want to be, especially the produced things. And back to the top of the show, like what's a container, how much is Schedule 1 now?
Yeah.
If you have a 6-pack, are you sitting on Schedule 1 drugs all of a sudden, right? Without a legal framework in your state, like the regulated cannabis market has. So yeah, time is not on their side. And then you have this news headline that we talked about this week where, the delay, which is a good kick the can, like, let's figure it out. Cause it was pretty abrupt for everybody. Right. And I remember back in December, people talking about the early December, like MJ Biz, like, what are we going to do? And that was shortly after the farm bill changes,
Right.
and here we are, basically in March, or this will probably go up in March, and no reprieve in sight.
No reprieve in sight. Yeah, this is the hemp industry, specifically the farmers, have gone through a few up and down cycles because of regulatory changes and also just the whims of the consumer market. Like CBD, remember how huge that was in like
Oh yeah.
2018? I mean, some of those companies that almost went public that are actually now gone were going to go at $1 billion. It was
Wow.
just like a different world. And the farmers really felt the impact of that aspect of the market, the CBD market, kind of like way contracting very suddenly because it had gotten so hot, and then a lot of people moved into it. It does bum me out because I'm a huge believer in cultivating hemp for myriad uses, including, I mean, we do have an industrial hemp investment in Alabama that has amazing things going on with the technology there for uses, for industrial uses, not for consumption. But you can use some of the hemp that is used for consumption for those purposes. So I hate to see I love farmers across the board. I mean, you have to, if you're in cannabis, you have to love people who grow plants. And so I do feel for the farmers on this like accordion life that they've been living of is this going to work? Is this not going to work? And then that is a really painful thing. And even the people who process it to go into those products, that's really difficult. And I have been hearing that, like in Florida, I've actually heard some people who pivoted out of cannabis into that space who are now coming back to cannabis because they're like, we got to get out of this. We're selling through all of our product and we just don't, the uncertainty is too much. So I do feel for that. I don't love that for people who are trying to find a lane to play nicely in this. And I would love to see this stay as an American industry. I'm pretty patriotic about that. And I'm pretty patriotic about our farmers being able to grow things. And hemp's good for the earth. So, anyway, that's just my little soapbox angle on that. God knows, like from an investor angle, this has gotten real interesting because it's like we know what it's like to have to rely on lawmakers to create a pathway for something. And this is actually in some ways even murkier than, like, at least we've been dealing with this agreed upon notion that the state laws are what we follow, right? And we just hope for less interference from the government and from the federal government. But like this is now getting really crazy because now it's like federal and the states are banning. And anyway, it's just getting really wild in that category. So I think you're muted, Ben.
We were talking about the beverage side, you know, and I don't know what New York may do. You know, I think it's good for the regulated industry too. You know, I just use that term like for the dispensary, you know, licensed channel, because I think having something like the beverage accessible in a place that they're going to already, whether that's a Total Wine or, you know, some store in their state that sells this stuff while they're buying other products, I think is a good way to kind of bring down the, I don't know, what's the right term here? It's like there's still so much stigma in the category, and you know, it kind of starts to pull that away a little bit, and maybe, you know, that stuff turns into votes for things, you know, turns into, you know, more approvals for things, and just differing opinions that otherwise, you know, people don't go out of their way to care about it, right? You're maybe an older person not in the category, as we find that, you know, it's a generational kind of mindset in a big way. And you're not in the category, you're not going to go out of your way to get in the category. You're not going to go to a dispensary and do all of that, you know, but you're going to see it on the store shelves while you're buying a bottle of wine in your market, you know, and it's like, oh, it's not so scary and it looks normal, and maybe you even try it. I think that stuff is good. And for that to go away, certainly hurts the category, because people, what happened to these? Oh, the government banned them, you know, and it's like, oh, well, they probably banned them because they were bad, or I'm glad I never bought it. And that's real disappointing, you know. And I know that, you know, that it's a broader world, and there's a lot of operators, probably people listening to this, that produce, you know, beyond beverage. And I think that there's, you know, maybe room for some other categories, just depending on execution and stuff. I mean, even with beverage, you know, packaging and stuff matters, you know. But you
Yeah.
see a lot of hemp stuff that's like, it's a little dicey, you know, depending on. It's very, very hot hemp.
Very hot.
So, you know, I just kind of, in generalities here, right? The beverage, the stuff that you'd see at a Total Wine or a Target, I don't know, pretty nondescript. And so that will be really disappointing, I think, when that goes away. Should we not see some change here? I think for me, that's a bit of a negative, just from being ancillary to the category.
Yeah, you know, that is a very good point, because I have heard, I've been waiting to hear this, but I have heard, especially women who I think got a little bit neglected by the cannabis industry early on. And then there was like pandering. It was like the brands were kind of like, we're for women. Is like, or maybe just be like, understand women and like be a part of their life. You know, that whole thing. But here we are. But I think beverage was a category that women did not feel as stigmatized around and like could participate in. And I think there was an interest in alternating out of alcohol for all the reasons we know. But then I heard my friends say, and like that was truly a category where my friends were coming to revisit cannabis again, and they had a really good relationship with that. The low dose beverages, it's like very approachable. It has a pretty predictable onset. It's very pleasant. It resembles having a glass of wine, like all the things that are familiar and comfortable. And then they started to tell me like, oh, and then I went to my dispensary. I'm like, oh, okay, whoa, the crossover is actually happening. And it's like, then it's like CBN gummies to help with sleep. And like, maybe now I'm trying a little fun thing at a concert, like the vape pen, you know, it's like, so it was working. It is working because it's showing that it's approachable, that it's consumable in a way that you don't lose control or you don't know what it is that you're consuming, which is what people want right now. That's definitely a broader consumer trend. Everybody wants to know the traceability of the things they're consuming. I see this in the nutrients industry too, which is another very loud space. But your point is a really good point, and I think it would be a poor choice for those products to be removed from the shelves wholesale. And we need to, I don't know. I'm curious to learn what the industry that is in hemp and also the alcohol industry are going to do to try to see this category protected. So.
Yeah. And, you know, we're starting to look at some of the data. And like I mentioned, we have numbers coming from retail stores, sizable retail stores, like a group in Texas that has over 200 stores. You know, we're tracking sales data there, and just month to date in February, so essentially like the last 25 days, 2 million in sales for just drinks alone. This is strictly drinks at one retail group in one state. That's pretty significant. We were looking at Illinois, another retail group out there, liquor store chain that's pretty notable, and they were doing the equivalent of like 60% of the regulated market and of beverage on their own. So one logo with I think about 40 stores, so pretty good footprint, but driving, you know, over half of, or the equivalent of over half of what is selling in the regulated channel. So, you know, I've seen all sorts of projections. You know, it's hard for us at Headset. We don't measure. We don't project up. We don't look at it and say this is the whole ecosystem. I think anybody who's publishing those numbers, it's a lot of assumptions that go into those numbers, because there's a lot of direct to consumer. You know, there are a lot of gas station type sales that are happening, you know, like it's all over the place. Stuff's getting banned left and right. Like you mentioned, smokable hemp, you know, and, but I've seen some big numbers put out there for whatever it's worth on the category and in a whole, and it's going to disappear. So it will be, crazy to watch. I don't know. Hopefully, you know, hopefully we see some federal change. I'm still waiting for the Schedule 3 stuff that was supposed to happen, like we all are, right? And here we are in March. still nothing. And I think that was January when that was announced. So stuff moves slow.
But you're just like, this is cracking some things open in my brain. Like, think about this. This all accelerated so quickly. It was like, there was no like intoxicating hemp beverage category, right? And then all of a sudden, I was saying this to Rosie. She sent me a picture, and because Senorita was there, which is our friend's TI. It's and that's, by the way, Senorita is really good
and selling really well from where we see at the stores. Yeah,
look at that. Because it's tasty. And I do love a margarita, but and she rocks into the liquor store and like, boom, there's an end cap with it. So like right up there. And then above it was the letters THC. Like, who thought that was going to happen within our lifetime, like that fast, so fast? And then all of a sudden, away it could go. No way.
Yeah, I know. The average consumer is just going to be, what happened? I used to buy this. Grocery, the liquor store. Oh, we can't get it anymore. Why not? It's going to be strange. So let's hope for the best that something changes. But I think it's a story that is not over yet. So lots to come. Well, it was great to be back. Should we do this again next year?
I don't know. I feel like I'm going to have to get a lot of work done if we're going to do it. So.
Yeah, that's right.
No, we're going to do it again next week. It's going to be great.
Heck yeah.
Or maybe the week after. We have to figure out our cadence, right?
Yeah, we got to figure out our schedule. But thanks for bearing with us. Hopefully, for those that have been with us for years on the High Rise, it's a pleasant surprise to see a new episode land, and expect more as the year goes on.
The poor neglected residents of the High Rise.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.